The storm in the Berkshires passed as dawn broke, leaving behind a world washed clean and unnervingly silent. But inside the small rental cabin, a more violent storm raged. The psychic assault had shattered the fragile sense of safety they had built. The sanctuary had been breached. Mia was a ghost of herself. She sat huddled in a blanket on the sofa, staring at the cold hearth, refusing to sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the vision. Julian's smug silhouette, the dark pulse of the obsidian heart, and the horrifying blue-eyed glare of her father's corrupted spirit lunging at her. The violation was absolute. It wasn't just a haunting, it was a desecration of her love, a weaponization of her grief. Her psychic sensitivity, once a strange and frightening gift, now felt like an open wound, a raw nerve exposed to a world of pain. Charlotte, watching her, felt a despair so profound it was a physical weight. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to protect, to comfort, to make it better. But she was utterly powerless. How could she fight a monster that wore her husband's face? The grief she felt was new and terrible, not just for the man who had died, but for the soul that was now being tormented and twisted into a weapon. Ethan wasn't at peace. He was a prisoner of war, and his prison was his own home, his own spirit. Their plan, so carefully constructed just a day before, now lay in ruins. Returning to the house was no longer a strategic reclamation. It was walking into an ambush where their guardian had become the chief aggressor. They couldn't go back. They couldn't stay here, waiting for Julian's influence to find them again. They couldn't go to the police. They couldn't disappear completely. They were checkmated, trapped on a board where every square was a threat. "What if we just take the stone and run?" Mia whispered, her voice hoarse from unshed tears. "Just drive as far away as we can. Throw it in the ocean." Thorne said destroying it could release the entity. Charlotte replied, her own voice hollow. "What if throwing it away does the same thing? Or what if Julian's people find us first? We saw how easily they tracked us. There's nowhere to run where they can't eventually find us." She paced the small cabin, the wooden floorboards creaking under her feet. "We're trapped in the story, Mia. I don't think we get to just walk away from it." For hours, they sat in that suffocating despair. The hope they had found in the diner had evaporated, leaving behind only the cold, hard facts of their situation. They were outmatched, outmaneuvered, and utterly, terrifyingly alone. It was Mia who broke the silence. "Call him," she said. Charlotte looked at her confused. "Call who?" "Professor Thorne," Mia said, a flicker of something, not hope, but a stubborn refusal to surrender, in her eyes. "He's the only one who knows. He's the only one who didn't look at me like I was crazy. We can't be the first people to ever face something like this. There has to be something else. Another way." Clinging to that sliver of agency, Charlotte grabbed the burner phone. Her hands shook as she dialed the only number in its memory. She didn't even know what she was going to ask for. She just knew she had to report the catastrophic failure of their plan. Thorne answered on the second ring, as if he had been expecting the call. "Alistair Thorne. Professor, it's Charlotte Ashworth." Her voice cracked. "It's worse. It's so much worse." She recounted the events of the previous night, her voice a low, desperate monotone. Mia's vision, Julian's presence in the study, the dark energy of the stone, and the final horrific psychic attack from Ethan's spirit. When she finished, the silence on the other end of the line was heavy with grim understanding. "I see," Thorne said finally, and his voice was graver than before. "Julian is more powerful, more audacious than I had feared. He is not just trying to connect with the Wanderer, he is actively poisoning the spiritual well around it. By controlling the nexus point, your house, he is twisting every echo, every spiritual imprint to his own will. He is turning your husband's love into a leash." "So we're lost," Charlotte said, the statement flat and final. "There's nothing we can do." "No," Thorne said, his voice suddenly sharp, cutting through her despair. "It means you stop thinking like victims and start thinking like soldiers. It means you need more than just a ritual. You need a beachhead, you need a sanctuary, and you need someone who understands the practical mechanics of this war. Someone else who—" "Stay where you are," Thorne commanded. "Don't move. Don't answer any doors. I am making a call. Someone will come to you. Trust her." The line went dead before Charlotte could ask another question. The hours that followed were some of the most tense of their lives. They sat in the cabin, watching the woods, starting at every sound, half expecting one of Julian's men to appear, half expecting something else. The someone Thorne mentioned. Late in the afternoon, a beat-up, dark green Subaru Forester, its sides splattered with mud, rumbled up the dirt road. It parked behind their rental car. A woman got out. She was not what Charlotte had expected. She wasn't a wispy psychic in flowing scarves or a grim-faced woman in black. She was in her late 50s, with short, practical gray hair, a face etched with laugh lines and concentration, and intelligent, no-nonsense eyes. She wore sturdy hiking boots, worn jeans, and a canvas work jacket. She pulled a heavy, strap-worn canvas duffel bag from the back of the car and walked to their door with a confident, unhurried stride. Charlotte and Mia watched her approach through the window, frozen. The woman stopped on the porch and simply waited, not knocking, as if giving them time to assess her. Finally, Charlotte took a breath and opened the door a crack. "Alistair sent me," the woman said, her voice calm and clear. "My name is Eleanor Vance. May I come in?" There was an authority in her demeanor that was instantly calming. Charlotte opened the door wider. Eleanor stepped inside, her eyes doing a quick professional sweep of the small room, taking in their frightened faces, the research papers spread on the floor, the general air of despair. "Alistair told me the broad strokes," Eleanor said, setting her heavy bag down with a thud. "The house, the artifact, the man named Julian, and the complications with your husband's spirit." She looked directly at Mia. "The psychic attack. How are you feeling?" The question was so direct, so practical, that it took Mia by surprise. I don't know, scared. Like there's a bruise inside my head." Eleanor nodded, her expression clinical but not unkind. "That's a common description. A psychic forceful entry is a blunt instrument. It leaves residual energy." She unzipped her duffel bag. It was not filled with mystical trinkets. It looked more like the kit of a specialized craftsman. There were canvas rolls tied with string, several glass jars filled with dark powders and coarse crystals, bundles of dried herbs, and a small, heavy-looking iron mallet. "We'll deal with that first. We can't plan a war if the soldiers aren't sound of mind." She was all business. She had Mia sit in a chair. She took a small, silver tuning fork from her bag, struck it lightly on the heel of her hand, and held it a few inches from Mia's forehead. It emitted a low, pure hum. "Close your eyes," Eleanor instructed. "Don't think about the house or your father or Julian. Just focus on this sound. Let it fill your head. When a thought comes, just acknowledge it and let it drift away. The sound is your anchor." For 15 minutes, she had Mia focus on the hum of the fork and on her breathing. Charlotte watched, fascinated. It wasn't a seance. It was a form of guided meditation, a psychological first aid. Slowly, she saw the tension in Mia's shoulders begin to relax. The terrified, hunted look in her eyes softened. When they were done, Mia looked exhausted but calmer. The noise in my head is quieter," she said, sounding surprised. "Good," Eleanor said, packing away the tuning fork. Your sensitivity is a lantern. In a storm, it can feel like a curse, attracting every monster and gust of wind. But if you learn how to build a casing for it, how to focus the beam, it becomes your greatest weapon. We'll work on that. But first, we fortify this position. For the next 2 hours, Eleanor Vance gave them a crash course in what she called practical spiritual defense. She spoke with the calm authority of a master electrician explaining a wiring diagram. This was not a world of faith and belief to her. It was a world of energy, resonance, and materials. Think of hostile spirits like a bad electrical current or a pervasive mold, she explained, opening a jar of coarse, grayish salt. They seek the path of least resistance. They thrive in places of emotional decay. The first step is to create barriers. She had them help her pour a thin, unbroken line of the Dead Sea salt across every threshold of the cabin, the front door, the back door, the base of every window. Salt is an ancient purifier. It creates a crystalline structure that non-corporeal energy finds difficult to cross. It's a basic fence. Next, she brought out a jar of fine black powder. Iron filings, she said. Iron is the enemy of most ethereal forms. It disrupts their energetic cohesion. It grounds them, makes them weak. She had them mix the iron filings with the salt, reinforcing the barriers. She explained the concept of a sanctuary. You can't cleanse an entire house that's as infected as yours all at once. That's like trying to cure a systemic infection with a single pill. You'll fail, and you'll exhaust yourselves. You must establish a beachhead, one single room that you make absolutely unequivocally yours, a panic room for the soul. She pulled out a hand-drawn diagram of a simple room. When you go back, this is your first and only objective. You choose a room, preferably an interior one with few windows, and you seal it. Salt and iron at the threshold. You burn a bundle of rowan and mugwort to cleanse the existing air of any residual presence. Then, you create the lock. She showed them a small, palm-sized piece of slate and a sharp, pointed tool. You carve a sigil into the slate, a symbol of protection. It doesn't need to be complex. It just needs to be created with a singular, focused intent. You place that sigil above the door. It acts as a psychic, no trespassing sign. It won't keep out something as powerful as Julian or the Wanderer indefinitely, but it will make it very difficult for the lesser spirits to enter. It will give you a place to breathe, to plan, to be safe. She spoke of Ethan's corrupted spirit. What Julian is doing is a form of psychic necromancy. He's using the raw emotion of your husband's spirit, his love, his regret, as fuel. He's twisting it. You cannot fight your husband's spirit directly. That's what Julian wants. It would be like trying to fight a fire by throwing more fuel on it. Instead, you must cut off Julian's influence. How? Charlotte asked. By reclaiming the house piece by piece, Eleanor said. Every time you successfully ward a room, you weaken Julian's hold over the entire structure. You are creating pockets of your energy that conflict with his. The sealing ritual for the stone is the ultimate act of this reclamation. But first, you need your sanctuary. By the time Eleanor was finished, the sun was setting. The cabin, with its lines of salt and iron, felt different. It felt safe. For the first time, Charlotte and Mia didn't just feel like victims. They felt like students. They had knowledge. They had tools. Eleanor stayed the night, sleeping on the sofa near the fire as a quiet guardian. In the morning, she gave them a list. Alistair is gathering the more esoteric items for the main ritual, she said. This is your list, things you can find. Pure beeswax candles, not paraffin, a silver mirror, a bowl made of oak. Simple things, but their symbolic resonance is important. She packed her duffel bag. "You have a new plan now," she said, looking them both in the eye. "It's no longer just about survival. It's about reclamation. It's dangerous, more dangerous than anything you've faced, but it is possible." After Eleanor left, a new sense of purpose filled the cabin. The despair was gone, replaced by a grim determination. They had spent the day not in fear, but in preparation. They had created a mission kit, a go bag that now contained not just clothes and a burner phone, but small bags of salt and iron filings, chalk, and a list of Eleanor's instructions. Their new plan was simple, terrifying, and clear. Phase 1, infiltration. They would find a way back onto the property, unseen. Phase 2, sanctuary. Their sole objective would be to reach a pre-chosen room. They decided on a small interior guest bedroom upstairs, seal it, and create their fortress of one. Phase 3, observation and preparation. From their sanctuary, they would observe Julian's movements and the patterns of the spirits. Phase 4, the sealing, the final confrontation. Late that afternoon, the burner phone rang. It was Alistair Thorne. His voice was low and urgent. "I have the items," he said. "The ash, the salt, everything. It's time to move. Are you ready?" Charlotte looked at Mia. Mia met her gaze and gave a single firm nod. The fear was still there, but now it was forged into something hard and sharp, like steel. "Yes," Charlotte said into the phone, her voice steady. "We're ready." They were no longer the terrified women who had fled their home in the dark. They were returning, not as prey, but as insurgents. They were going back to fight for the soul of their house and for the soul of the man who had built it.